Your child is having a very hard time sleeping. And so you seek advice. And usually, when you seek advice, one of the first things that you are told is that sleep training is exactly what your child needs. Maybe your pediatrician informs you of this, maybe a friend, or you are part of a forum. And so you dive into this world of sleep training and you learn that there are many different kinds of sleep training. And perhaps you are swayed into go into one direction. Maybe you try a gentle sleep training method because you feel as a parent that you want to take this approach with your child and do something gentle and not so extreme. So you try it, and then your child does not respond well. And as a result, you say, I need to do something harder. I need to try maybe ferberization or extinction. And so you go that route. And as parents, it's important to acknowledge the many reasons why we seek child sleep support and why we turn to sleep training. First and foremost, we may not know that there are other options. We are told what we're told. We're exposed to what we're exposed to. And if we're not aware that there are options other than traditionally sleep training your child, all that you will know is to sleep train your child. So as a result, you go there. So it's just what you know. Secondly, you've reached a state of exhaustion, frustration. You simply cannot take anymore. You cannot function. So naturally, you're going to look for the quickest fix. That is absolutely normal to look for a quick fix when you cannot take it anymore physically or emotionally. So that's another reason why parents will go right toward sleep training. And another one is because of our lifestyle. We might have a specific kind of lifestyle that our children, we want them to fit into. And sleep training feels like it's the best way to control the outcomes. So we might turn to that. But what we may not be aware of is that sleep training is not necessary. One of the greatest myths that parents often hear is that you need to sleep train your child. You need to teach your child how to sleep. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. You do not need to teach your child how to sleep. In fact, your child is already developing their sleep cycles beginning in the womb. And once they are born, they're continuing that process. And they're learning how to adapt to their environment. And what at that point we're doing is we're supporting our child through sleep development. So this misleading idea and this myth that we're continuously told that your child needs to be taught how to sleep is incorrect. It is scientifically incorrect. From a biological standpoint, a child does not need to be taught how to sleep. Now, if one chooses to control how their child sleeps because of a specific kind of lifestyle, that's a different story. But the fact of the matter is that your child does not need to be taught how to sleep. There's so much that I can share about this world. My name is Mar De Carlo. For those of you that are joining me for the first time, I am the founder of the International Parenting and Health Institute, which we founded 16 years ago in 2009. We're now represented in 70 countries around the world. I'm also the founder of the Association of Professional Sleep Consultants, and I am the author of Awakening Through Sleep, a transformational and spiritual guide for pregnancy, adult, and child sleep. I enjoy connecting the dots, dispelling myths, helping people with practical and realistic tools, and ones that have long-lasting results. And one of the key factors that is often missed in the world of child sleep, sleep training being on top, this myth that we're told that our children need to be taught how to sleep, is the fact that the initial focus is on the child. And what's often missing is the focus and the evaluation of the parent's physical and mental well-being. Science already shows that there is a direct correlation between parents, specifically a mother's emotional availability, and the quality of their child's sleep. Children are feeling, sensing, observing. And as a result, they're picking up on those cues. They're feeling the stressors. And while every child is going to respond differently, the fact of the matter is that they're being influenced. And so if a parent or caregiver is approaching a child sleep circumstance from a place of frustration, exhaustion, stress, and with the thoughts of, oh, here we go again. I have to put my child to sleep. Oh, what am I going to do if my child doesn't sleep? This is so frustrating. A child will feel and will sense that. So one of the first things as a very vital foundation to support our child through sleep and developing their sleep is to check in with yourself as a parent or caregiver. And what I mean by that, number one, watch your thoughts. Don't be afraid of those thoughts that come up of frustration, of anger, of exhaustion, of I can't take anymore, because that's normal. That's absolutely normal. We live in a society, in our modern day society, many of us are taking on so much. Many of us no longer have extended families or additional support. And so having those thoughts and those feelings are normal, right? It's not uncommon to have those feelings. So don't beat yourself up if you start observing and noticing that, yeah, I actually approach my child's sleep with a very strong frustration, with an assumption that my child cannot sleep and does not know how to sleep. And I want a quick fix. So if those thoughts appear and arise, welcome them in. Don't resist them, because you're not alone. In fact, many of us are going through the same thing. Now that you recognize that you're going through those thoughts and those feelings, we have an incredible opportunity to connect with our body and our breath in order to begin regulating our nervous system. Now, why does that matter? It matters for so many reasons. You are direct influence for your child. The moment you begin to regulate your nervous system, connecting with your body, becoming aware of your breath, slowing down your breath, and your nervous system begins to go from a sympathetic to parasympathetic state, your child will feel that. Now, although your child's root cause of their sleep challenge may not be something as simple as their wakened sleep windows or temperature, and may be due to a food intolerance or something else, it's understandable that even through your own nervous system regulation, your child still may show that they are unable to settle because the root cause has not been addressed. For example, a food intolerance that then is causing gas and colic and so on. Or even if they've experienced a birth trauma and there is a physical imbalance in their body that would need to be sorted through a practitioner. So there are a number of reasons why a child would not be able to sleep. And even though they may not settle with your own nervous system regulation in those specific cases, you're still doing yourself and your child a great service, because the more you show up for yourself, you're going to be able to meet every single challenge from sleep to anything else that appears in your child's life with a great amount of power and a behavior and a role model that then sets your child up for success. Because when your child sees how you're role modeling, how you're approaching the challenges in your life with an ability to regulate your nervous system, they will do the same. Because in fact, we're not meant to be perfect. We're not meant to show up in every single circumstance perfect. But what we can do, although we can't control every aspect of our circumstances, is we can control how we respond. Think of it it like working out. When you first start working out, it might feel unnatural, uncomfortable. And you may not be able to do as many reps. You may not be able to lift as heavy weights when you work out. However, over time, it becomes more natural to your body. You feel much better and you actually look forward to it. And that's the same thing that happens when you begin to connect with your body and your breath and regulate your nervous system. In the beginning, it may feel very uncomfortable because your body's not used to it. You're carrying patterns, and those patterns may have stemmed from your childhood or even beyond that from your ancestry. And now you're carrying all those along. And because you've never been taught, you've never learned up until this point how to work through those, naturally, it's going to feel like a little bit of a challenge in the beginning. But when you commit yourself to showing up for yourself, not only does it support your health and that breaking of the pattern that did not serve you, it then supports your child as well. So remember, sleep training is not necessary. Your child does not need to be taught how to sleep. Think of it like this. Sleep training was brought to the surface and was introduced because people didn't really know any better, right? They were sorting through everything and they thought this was the way, and it stuck. And out of that was born so many different sleep training methods. But the thing is, if we approach it from the standpoint of my child can't sleep and doesn't know how to sleep, we're already creating a limitation because perhaps our child is not able to sleep because of a food intolerance, because of a birth trauma, because of your energy, because of sleep hygiene. There are so many reasons. Now, the other thing is the expectation we have. In the sleep world, unlike the rest of child development, there is this expectation that your child should be sleeping through the night as soon as they can. Some even will advocate as early as 4 months your child can sleep through the night. And in fact, parents will compare and they'll brag, oh, my child can sleep through the night. Well, here's the truth. The truth is, at some point or another, your child's not going to sleep through the night. They're going to maybe get a fever one day, have a cold, go through an emotional circumstance, something that, they're fearful about, right? Separation anxiety. As adults, we go through that too, right? There are some times we're not going to be able to sleep either. That's life. There are going to be moments in our life where we're not able to sleep. And so the reality is that no one, no adult and no child is going to, once they begin consolidating their sleep and becoming more developmentally ready for independent sleep. Yes, that's going to be more consistent in one's life, but that does not mean that you're going to sleep through the night for the rest of your life. So oftentimes, what's being sold to parents is this expectation that once you sleep train, now your child's going to sleep through the night and you don't have to worry about their sleep again. Even to the point where now what I've been seeing online is this. Lately I saw, it's called retraining. It's called sleep retraining, because now if you go on vacation, now if something, different circumstance, you're moving, whatever it is, guess what? You have to reintroduce sleep training. So now sleep training is coming back to the surface. But there are limitations to that. First one being that when there are changes in your environment, when there are changes physiologically, emotionally, it's important to evaluate what those are and then adapt to those changes. You don't need to force sleep. Sleep just happens under the right circumstances, under the right conditions. Sleep just happens. And also, going back to the development, as I was saying earlier, there's this expectation with child sleep that children need to sleep through the night as fast as they can. If we look at all other aspects of development for our children when it comes to talking, walking, potty training, right? All these other aspects. Well, potty training is Yeah, well, it's part of it. It's when it comes to that, what happens is we give our children leeway. We understand that while they're working toward their independence in those areas and getting better at it, let's use walking, crawling to walking. They're going to show advancements. They're going to show that they're independent, they're able to take steps. But we know it's a process. It's going to take some time. They're still going to need to depend on us for some of it. When they're young, we hold their hand to cross the street, even though they can independently walk on their own. Okay. So the point is that while we're encouraging independence, sleep development is not an overnight thing. In fact, I like to call it an interdependent journey that leads toward independence. And we still want to keep an open door for dependence when needed. Even as adults, let's face it, we go through moments where we can self-soothe, we can handle things on our own. But when we go through a really tough time, doesn't it feel good to reach out to someone to talk to? Doesn't it feel good to even get a hug? Even as adults, seeking the support of others, whether it's through a listening ear, whether it's through physical touch, there are so many benefits to that. And so we want to continue inviting that for our children. We want our children to know that while you are developing toward independence, they still can be dependent when it's necessary. You don't have to cut off that dependence and fear, oh, if I do not push my child toward independence and make sure that they're independent, especially in their sleep, oh no, it's ruined. A child is wired for independence unless they are in conditions, in circumstances that are limiting their independence, many of which involve insecurities and fears, unsafe situations, that will limit their independence. The more a child feels safe, secure, then they will naturally seek independence because that is how we are hardwired. We are hardwired as human beings to explore, to be curious, to do things on our own. We love it. In fact, children, as you can see them when they're going through their physical crawling and walking, until we step in and say, no, 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 be careful. Until we do that, they're going to go for it. In fact, they're going to fall down and get up and fall down and get up, and they're going to keep on trying until someone stops them. Okay? So keep that in mind when it comes to child sleep. Because again, there's just so much information that's being shared right now that is extremely misleading. And most importantly, understand that in addition to the myth that you need to teach your child to sleep and the missing piece of how, as parents and caregivers, our own energy, our own thoughts and beliefs are influencing our child, uncovering the root cause is vital. That is the key. So many parents will go on a forum. You can do this yourself. I encourage you to do this just so you can see this for yourself. Go onto a Facebook group for child sleep and notice that when someone asks a question about their child's sleep, about 80 to 90% of the responses are not inquiring further questions to evaluate what is going on with that individual's child, okay, with that family's child. What they do with good intentions is that they give advice. Oh, your 6-month-old is not sleeping through the night. Here's what I tried. Here's what worked. Did you try this method? Did you read that book? Did you do this? Did you do that? Here's what worked for me. That is usually what parents face when they go onto these forums. Rather than, my 6-month-old is not sleeping through the night. When did this begin? When did this start? How was your child's sleep before then? What did you try? Does this happen every day of the week or some days of the week? Is your child able to fall back asleep or not? Were there any changes that recently happened? Okay. Right? So evaluation, questioning, Looking at the circumstances is key to uncovering what is going on with that child. Now, you will hear things like, oh, sleep regression. And I actually call it transition, not regression, because the truth of the matter is when a child is going through what is known as a regression, what's really happening is they're going through developmental stages where they're making some steps forward and some steps back, some steps forward, some steps back, until they progress forward, until the forward and the advanced development begins taking hold. And then the old patterns will die off, right? They no longer are there. So what's really happening is a transition, not an actual regression when a child is going through a stage like this. And so when a child goes through a transition, it's easy to feel scared, overwhelmed, thinking that, uh-oh, I just sleep trained my child, and now they're going through a regression. I have to sleep train them again. If we take a step back and we recognize a child does not need to be taught how to sleep, they know how to sleep. We just need to find out what's getting in the way, what they're going through developmentally. Then we can approach it from an empowered place, from a knowledgeable place, from a place that is practical and realistic and is customized specific to that child's needs and to your family's needs. That is key. So the evaluation piece and understanding the truth about child sleep is key. I will continue sharing so much more. In fact, I'm going to share case studies with all of you very soon, but I wanted to come on here and begin sharing with all of you why I'm so passionate about child sleep, adult sleep, just all of health in general. And in fact, I love busting myths. I love diving deep. I love connecting the dots. When I see that people are trying so hard to help their child or themselves, and they are struggling and they have sought help, and they are still struggling, nothing's been able to help them, I enjoy supporting them through the process of uncovering what may be going on that still has not been uncovered and why they still have been stuck. One other thing I'm going to share in closing, and this is not to undervalue pediatricians at all, because I value them deeply. And in fact, many of them today are going above and beyond, and they're learning more about child sleep. In fact, many of them have taken my holistic pregnancy and child sleep consultant program. So many pediatricians today are evolving and they are expanding their knowledge about child sleep. I'm sharing this though, so that you're aware of the reality of medical school. Just because someone is a pediatrician alone, just based on that alone, and based just on medical school alone, does not mean that they are well equipped and fully knowledgeable about child sleep. In fact, most people are not aware that the average doctor in medical school gets about 4 to 6 hours, if that, sometimes even less than 4 hours of sleep education. And that is based on the medical side of things, not understanding the whole context of the family, uncovering root causes, understanding nutrition. There's just so much in the mix. When you understand that, you realize that as valuable as a pediatrician can be for your child, they may not have all the answers unless they went and got continuing education and expanded their own knowledge about child sleep. Most likely, they're going to be limited in what they understand about child sleep. And as a result, they're going to provide you limiting information. So the point is, when you're receiving advice from people, welcome it in because it's well-intentioned. So welcome it in, thank them for their advice. But then take a step back and begin investigating, evaluating, and learning more about your family and your child. and yourself. And when you begin that process and you are aware that your child knows how to sleep and if something's just getting in the way, preventing them from sleep, then you're on a path of long-term solution and success. Please feel free to leave me questions, comments. As I shared, I'm going to come more on these lives and share case studies with you, give you examples, tangible, practical, real examples of cases to showcase to you how sleep training limited a child and where it was taken when it was addressed from a holistic integrative approach. I'm going to do the same for adults. I'm also going to be talking about parenting. I'm going to be talking about business. There's so many things I'm going to be talking about. So I look forward to having you join me. And if there is a specific topic, a specific question that you have, let me know. I love discussions. I love challenges. I enjoy learning and growing. So I look forward to receiving your feedback, your comments, and your questions. Thank you.